14 years of, they've impacted a lot of, like you guys, very successful and ambitious entrepreneurs, hopefully, and you guys have done a great job with it. It's amazing. So thank you for what you're doing for the community and also for the business schools. It's really good.
Thanks for coming across the river.
Exactly. Right. You know, I live in Maryland, although I have 2 offices in Virginia, so I'm here every day. And I wanted to start by just taking a quick survey of you guys. How many of you are either entrepreneurs or plan to be an entrepreneur right when you graduate? So maybe like a third or 40%. And how many of you are going to get into like the corporate world? Corporate world? Anybody interested in the corporate world? Don't be shy. What, is it bad to be in the corporate world now? Government? Anyone want to go to government? Okay. And how about like NGOs, nonprofits, that kind of stuff? So we have a diverse group. So you got some soul searching to do. Great. So I'm going to talk about building a successful business. I've given this talk, I guess. I didn't do the first year. I think I started the second or third year. So this might be my 12th or 13th time doing this. I try to improve it a little bit, but I'm going to talk mostly about my experience building a call center company called CyberRep here in McLean, Virginia, which had offices all over the U.S. And I built the business for 12 years from scratch. And I think John and I became friends as I was an investor with him in two things that he did. As you guys know, he's the godfather of angel investing worldwide, I would say. Have you guys read his book yet?
They wouldn't pay to have it.
Isn't that part of the curriculum to read your books? You've got 2 books. Okay, go on Amazon, make sure you buy both of John's books. There's a wealth of wisdom in there. But as part of John's angel investment group, we sort of bonded, and I really appreciate him bringing me into his world. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my background and about my business, and then just open it up to have a conversation with you guys, especially you entrepreneurs, and you guys have anything that you're curious about or whatever. Are you guys all full-time MBA? No. Okay. So part of you are what, executive or evening program? So how many of you are working? So, and who's from Georgetown? McDonough. Great. I'm an entrepreneur resident at McDonough. I have whole office hours at Hariri. I was there twice this week, so if you ever want to talk about entrepreneurial stuff, I don't know. Have you guys know Jeff Reed at all? So I'm under Jeff's umbrella. So it's great to see the Georgetown crowd coming in. Nobody from Duke, though, I hope. Keep that up, please. Anyway, all right, let's get started. So I'm involved in 2 companies. I'm chairman of an education technology company in Herndon called Tech 2000. We are changing our name, just so you know. It's kind of an interesting name. It was a great name 30 years ago when they started it. I acquired it 4 years ago. And then I'm also the chairman of a company called More Systems in Ashburn, Virginia, which does managed hosting and cloud computing. So Tech 2000 is an ed tech and corporate training business. We serve Fortune 500 companies, including Cisco, Apple, Verizon, MetLife, software development. We have a learning analytics platform that we're in the process of building out. Probably take another year or 2 to build it, but it's going to be an enterprise sort of software as a service SaaS platform that will allow companies to see the efficacy of training, whether people are studying, when they're studying, where they're having problems, and trying to personalize education. We're growing, we're profitable, we're backed by a PE firm, and our differentiator we're very innovative. The education industry, the corporate training industry has gone through a lot of change over the last 5 to 10 years, tons. Lots of companies going out of business, people can't innovate. So in order to thrive, we had to develop an innovation culture. We view that as a differentiator. We have a great culture, and we are focused on the customer, which sounds cliche, but it's critical when you're in a competitive environment and you're getting shot at from all directions. You have to get back to your basics, which is make your customer happy. More Systems was a company I bought in 2008, about 10 years ago. Company does managed services. We do virtual chief information officer work, so we will take over an office, say this office, and might have 100 or 200 employees or 20 employees, and we do all their IT, including migrating to the cloud. We have data center facilities in Ashburn, and we service the federal government, we service small and mid-sized businesses, and we also service associations and nonprofits. And our differentiator is we make IT easier, friendlier, and more reliable. It's something that we hit on a long time ago because IT companies tend to be the exact opposite, polar opposite. They're difficult, they're not friendly, they're not reliable. So we figured if we can bring customer service to an engineering company, that would help. I founded the business in 1992 with two partners here in Northern Virginia at Tyson's Corner. It was a call center business, and we grew the business. We started it with nothing. We basically went into debt, credit card debt, to invest in the company, and three partners, just three people, three guys in a garage. It's classic, entrepreneurial story. We quit our corporate jobs, and we started this business. And we got, we were in Alexandria and then Arlington, Virginia. But the one thing that the three partners had in common was we had a real focus on. So two of us were from commercial real estate. One was from kind of Wall Street, and we had this focus on quality, taking care of the customers. And we couldn't believe that in the call center industry there was such horrible quality. So there was a huge gap in the industry in terms of quality, the differential between the average services and a very good attentive service provider. So we grew a lot. We captured. We just started from scratch. We started calling telecom companies in Northern Virginia. We started landing little contracts, and we just kind of grew the business slowly. We wound up serving four major industries: telecommunications, financial services, consumer products, also technology. So when we sold the business, Nextel was our largest customer, followed by Microsoft, and then we had a whole bunch of other corporate customers, including Kaiser Permanente, Nestle, Merck, and others. What we did differently in the call center world back then, and this is sort of table stakes today, but we differentiated by hiring four-year college degree graduates to be call center agents. We had a dress code. We made them sign codes of ethics. We ran background checks. We drug tested them. We made them sign NDAs. Stuff that most companies would do today. But call centers back then they were just hiring people off the street. And we found that by having this attentiveness on the quality of the people that are serving our customers, that we just sort of had this intuition that would be great. And it turned out to be a good guess. Our clients were loving the fact that we had really good agents who didn't quit. The problem with the call center industry is a lot of turnover because these are not really great jobs. Back then it was sweatshops, lots of call centers in a small room and lots of stations, and just really a tough job. But we were able to hire a little bit higher quality, more educated employee, charge more money, and as a result, I think we were groundbreaking in the industry. We wound up growing the business through acquisition and through organic growth, but we did take capital. So Allied Capital, which is no longer around, they were a $5 billion, they call them BDCs, business development companies, publicly traded. They invested $21 million in our company over a 3-round period, and basically it was great. They owned a third of the company roughly, but they sort of helped us grow the business. It allowed us to build more facilities, more capacity. It allowed us to buy 2 companies. And they also helped us when we sold the company. We sold the company to a public company called Affiliated Computer Services out of Dallas. ACS was a Fortune 500. They wound up being bought by Xerox. Anyone familiar with Conduent at all? Or heard of Conduent? Conduent is an outsourced company that was spun off of Xerox. So my company became part of ACS, and then it became part of Xerox, and then Xerox spun off their outsourcing business. So my company, the legacy of my company, is now called Conduent, is part of Conduent. And my company's now went from $80 million when I sold it in 2003 to over $2 billion today. But just to give you an idea, we started the company in the fall of 1991, and we had 0, 3 guys in a garage. And then it took us basically 4 years to get to 2.8 million. This was a pure services company, so no products. Our first real year in business, I think we did 280K, and then the second year we did 550, and then we did 2.8 million. And we had 1 location in Tyson's Corner, right on Greensboro Drive. We had a 65-seat call center, and we wound up growing. We took money from Allied Capital the first round in 1998, so we had sort of self-financed the business to around 15 million on our own, sort of, just being as profitable as we could and being careful with our capital. We were able to grow the business to 15 million in revenue. And we were profitable every single year. So every year we were profitable. At the end of when we sold the company, we were at about 16-17% EBITDA margin. So that was sort of, we were in a 14 to 17% range every year. That was important for us. We always maintained the fact that we wanted to be profitable. So Allied Capital came in 1998 and allowed us to build a center in Lakeland, Florida. So we were able to, with that capacity, grow the business from 15 million to 23 million. And then in the year 2000, we went back to Allied because we saw an opportunity to buy 2 companies in California and Oregon, which we wound up doing. And that basically doubled our revenues. 15 million of that growth, roughly, was from an empty call center that we bought in Portland, Oregon as part of the acquisition. I had a customer that wanted that whole center, Nextel. So if you guys are doing M&A, it's nice to have a customer in your back pocket when you go and buy capacity from somebody, because we didn't have to sit there and try to sell that space. We had someone who wanted it already. And then, so we grew the business to about 80 million. I sold the company in 2003. And you can see the company just took off. So what happened was ACS had some call center operations that they put it under our group. And Nextel Communications, which was a $50 million customer of mine in 2003, became a $400 million customer of ACS. And that's where a lot of the growth went. They were the Nextel was bought by Sprint, as you guys may remember. I'm dating myself here, but so Sprint became a $400 million customer of ACS, and all of that was call center, and that's why. So you might want to ask, why didn't Sprint grow with us? Sprint had a policy that they didn't want to be sort of, your only customer. We were doing a really good job with them, and that's why when we sold to a bigger company, we were doing such a good job. They just gave us more work. And ACS was a public company. There were about $6 billion in revenue. They had a good balance sheet. So that's how they grew that account. And then all of this was being run by alumni of our company. So our COO and several of our senior VPs were responsible for this great growth. So the long story short is, you're going to ask me if I regret selling, which I don't, even though it cost a lot of money. Not, it's probably tens of millions of dollars personally, because I sold here and the company grew. I don't regret it for personal reasons. I had 3 young kids, and it was time to. I had not taken any money off the table, so it was time to take some cash out and enjoy my family a little bit. And also, our biggest customer was Nextel, and 2 of my competitors had pretty big companies with 50% of their company being MCI. One case, and I forget the other company in the other case. And in both cases, they lost their largest customer and went out of business. I didn't want that happening to us. So there was a little bit of what if there. We spent 12 years building this business. Maybe it's time. The other point is that my team, seeing these guys grow and blossom and exceed multiples of what I've ever accomplished just gives us a great source of satisfaction for me to see these people just kick ass. And basically, I still talk to pretty much all of the senior managers that were on my team back in the day. We're still all pretty close and in contact. So one of the things I'm working on is acquiring a call center. So I am actually out in the market with some of my former teammates to look to buy call call centers right now. So we're looking to get back into business in a different way. Anyway, so John wanted me to talk about building a successful business. So before we talk about that, I want to define success. So to me, success was being an industry leader, quality-wise, not necessarily size-wise. To us, quality was always more important than size. Where our customers really loved us. I found out when I sold my company, it's very, very important to have customers advocate for you to the buyer because it helps you get a premium price when you exit. And we didn't consciously do that. And this is all hindsight stuff that I looked at my top 10 customers, and the buyers went to visit all of my top 10 customers. And I went on a couple of those meetings, but not all of them. But having your customers telling the buyer how awesome you are is just a great thing. Not just from a pride standpoint, but obviously there's financial and business benefits for it. Also profitability with growth. So that's part of the definition of success in my mind. Having a scalable platform. So you saw the company grow from 80 million to over $1 billion using pretty much the same business standards that we had. I still, even today, look at sometimes I see reports from the new company that show, and the reporting is identical format to what we developed back in the late 90s. They're still using the same reporting structures and the same categories, which means we built something really cool. We built a great process. And then having a successful exit. So when we sold, we got cash, and we were sold at a premium to our public comparables. So anyway, so what's required for success? This is just me talking and thinking. I think first and foremost, you have to have, it all starts up here. You have to have the right mindset, a winning mindset, a winning mentality, a leadership mentality, whether you're looking at any field of endeavor, whether it's athletics or sports or work, school, teaching, business. If you think you can win, it starts with thinking that you can win. It always starts with that attitude. If you don't think you can make it or win, guaranteed you won't. Guaranteed. 100% guaranteed. So you have to have belief in yourself. And that means, the purple bullets, right? Having a never quit mentality. So persistence is really, really important. And you guys that are entrepreneurs, I can tell you that it's not how smart you are, it's not how rich you are, it's not who your investors are, it's not who your customers are. It's about the intestinal fortitude that you have to get the you-know-what eaten out of you every day and get up with even more passion and desire than when you just got knocked down. That happens every day. It's not for everybody. It's a very difficult thing to have your own business. And I'm talking emotionally and psychologically, not intellectually or technically. That stuff is cake, really, compared to, I don't know, have any of you ever run a business or had your own business? So, are you guys relating to that? Or so having that never quit mentality is critical, especially when you're a founder. If you're a founder, everyone's looking at you like you're the leader, right? So if you're showing weakness or if you're showing doubt and you're showing weakness, that affects your entire team. The team starts questioning, am I on the wrong ship here? Should I get off? Going all in. So part-time entrepreneurship doesn't, in my mind, it's impossible. You have to be 100%. There's no compromise, really. And unfortunately, the reality is it affects other parts of your life. It affects social life, it affects family life, it affects a lot of things. But it's very, very difficult to, I know it sounds terrible, it's my experience. I'd like to know what your thoughts are and John's thought. I think it's real balance is a fantasy. Success and balance is a fantasy. You have to be unbalanced. I tell my team it's work balance, not work life. Work balance. And I think millennials and Generation Y have some issues with that. And I would love to, I can't wait to see how they navigate this stuff. But baby boomer generation, which John and I are it's an all-in situation, right? Motivating the team, finding the team, surviving. So, success equaling survival is sort of like this never quit mentality. Constantly just making sure you don't win by winning, you win by surviving. And it's so true. It's business, and many times. I think now more than ever because of how competitive it is. But I really think business is a war of attrition, and it's about staying in business and trying to keep everyone motivated. And then we talked about intestinal fortitude. I think that serendipity doesn't get enough credit. A lot of it is success comes with serendipity. People call it luck, or they call it chance, or you got to be ready when it comes. But without serendipity, we could have never done what we did. And I'm talking about numerous different turns. If I wrote the history book on our story, there were so many lucky things that happened along the way. I don't think it could have happened without all those pieces. Staying focused, yet staying open to new opportunities. So much is written about keeping an open mind and boundaryless mind. True. A lot has been written about focus, right? True. Finding that sort of balance between staying focused yet open to opportunities is an art. It's a real art. I don't think it's a science. I think you have to have, like Steve Jobs, if you study, or Bezos, the great ones, Elon Musk, they have this gut that allows them to know what's worth spending some brain cells on and money and what's not worth it. And I think that's critical to doing that. And then maybe the most important is being tuned into the customer and figuring out ways to make them happy, like really, really happy. So I think that those are really important requirements for success. And then I have 5 items that I talk about some of the things that applied to us when we were building our successful business. The first 2 are people and culture. I think I underrated people and culture when I was building my business. It was only until several years in I realized, oh my goodness, I need to hire awesome people, and I need to figure out how to put them in a position where they can succeed. And culture too. The culture stems from the founder in an entrepreneurial environment. If the founder likes these values, then that's what happens. The culture will be just like that. And it's a reflection of the founders, what's important to the founder. So our culture was one of, just kick butt and always put the customer first at every, even at our employees' expense. And, for better or for worse, and they're good and bad about it, but that was our culture. And we basically had a very, very aggressive culture to make our customers successful as much as possible. As far as the people side, I think, it's interesting because that was a generation ago, and we've changed a lot, and I try to apply some of the learnings even today to the companies that I'm involved in. But the fundamentals are you do need to have sort of the right people on the bus, right? So if you have one bad apple, it really does spoil the whole bunch. And in my personal opinion, I'd rather have a team of people who, without a superstar or flashy, than to have a superstar salesperson, let's say, who's doing tremendously well for the company, bringing in business, but they're a difficult person. They're being rude, or they're not following rules, they're doing things. So back in my day, sometimes my friends that own companies would bet, oh, he's okay, he's producing, it's okay for him to behave like that. In our case, it was much more, this is our little box that we got to fit in. The third purple bullet of flexibility and resourcefulness to me is very, very important, because in a startup environment, you're in a company that's constantly changing. It's in total flux. Things change on an hour-by-hour, day-by-day basis. If you don't have people who are flexible, you can lose. So you want to have people, and the key is to find people during the hiring process and figure out if they really are flexible. But you want to have people that have a flexible mentality, because your business is all about flexibility. This is not the federal government, which is fixed. So it's very important, I think, to have people who are flexible. And resourcefulness is critical, because you're asking people to do things with limited time and limited money. And in a startup, you're not like IBM with $1 billion budget, billions of dollars in budget. You have no budget, and you have to go create something So you're asking them to be sort of entrepreneurial within your entrepreneurial thing. And is that James Kramer by any chance? So, in terms of the culture, I would just say that these are the values that we loved and we espoused and we drove home. As you build your own businesses, even if you're in corporate America or government, you're managing teams, you're going to want your team to have its own set of culture that you kind of can mold and nurture. So there is no right or wrong culture, I don't think. I think as long as you have a consistent culture, though, then the people that you hire can then kind of play along with it. I think where you have a problem is here, you have no culture, and everyone's got their own mind. Yes, you had a question?
I'm curious for the people that acquired the company, how important this was that it was a match with integrating their processes, their people, their culture, their hiring practices, the culture and such.
Okay, did you guys get that? You heard that? So the company that bought us was a very active acquirer of other companies. They had bought 40-something companies in the prior 7 or 8 years. So they were a machine. So they kind of had this thing figured out. They also had a good culture. Their management team was very, we shared a lot of what they did. It was a kind of, they were run by entrepreneurs, actually. Even though they were a Fortune 500 company, the guy running our unit and his deputy were both entrepreneurs. They sold their company to the mothership. So that was good. And they had a lot of this, because they do integration. I don't know if you guys have done M&A, but integration is critical to making a merger or an acquisition succeed. And culture is like at the heart of it. So they actually had a lot of that culture. They had videos and marketing materials. We had meetings with our team the day we sold. I think every single location, we had 9 locations. They had management, we had management. We had a whole communication plan. So that helped a lot. If the company had a completely different culture and had not done a lot of M&A, I think the odds of failure would have been a lot higher.
Just to follow on, how long did you stay involved with the company after they made a sale to help?
Right. So I stayed for a year. So my partner did not stay. My CFO. One of the conditions of selling was no layoffs. I told the guys I wanted, and they wouldn't put that in writing. But the head of M&A came to me. He pulled me outside. We were in a law firm, in the conference room. That's when I said, I want you to add language about no layoffs. So John Rexford pulled me outside and said, hey man, I can't agree to that in writing, but you have my word. You have my bond. And he shook my hand. He said, we're not going to lay any of you guys off. I said, okay, that's good enough for me. It turned out fine. They didn't lay anyone off. They basically allocated people. So people in my accounting department, our CFO, they were all offered jobs within the company. So they had 40,000 employees. So they had lots of growth. I don't know if I answered.
Yeah. I was curious for someone that does get to that exit strategy, what kind of expectation is there for most entrepreneurs to stay on?
Yeah.
Make sure that it's successful.
I stayed on for that 1 year to help with clients. So I played a lot of golf the first few months, and they paid me for a year. I had my same office, and it was almost like nothing changed for that year. I didn't go to the office every day anymore, but I was there whenever they needed me, absolutely. And there was an earnout. There was a small earnout that was contingent on something. So it paid for me to stay engaged until that was all achieved. Yeah. Yes?
In your experience, how do you identify flexibility in a potential candidate that you're looking at hiring? Because I know in many cases, for us at least, that's very difficult to identify.
Yes.
I'm curious your experience with that.
I'm going to agree with you 100%. It's really hard to find who's fixed and who's flexible.
Right.
It's really important in a startup to have flexible thinkers. And in a military operation, though, or in a nuclear facility, it probably doesn't pay to have flexible people. You want them to be very procedural. You don't want your airline person, your pilot, you want your pilot to be very, very procedural and checklisting, right? So we do a lot of interviewing, a lot of questioning, one-on-one group interviews. checking references is critical. We try to check references that are not provided to us in some way, figuring out if we can triangulate to a coworker or a former coworker or something that we can get some more data on whether the person has that flexibility or not. Because I think that's a trait that's established at a very young age. And as you guys may know, once you have a trait established or a habit, it's very hard to change. So we try to look for that. Also, hiring athletes has been pretty good. We've done very well with athletes because they are team players, they are disciplined, they are good time managers, they are good at juggling. Depending on the type of athletes, I've found that swimmers and track people are they work very fast. If you give them a deadline, they're motivated. And whereas tennis players are very disciplined. And so sports are, but we look for leadership on the field, and that sometimes translates to the work environment. But you're never really sure.
Right.
You just got to do the best you can. Yes?
2 questions. One, when did you get funding from Allied Capital?
So we got funded in October of 1998.
Okay.
Right after the Russian debt crisis hit. So they invested. They offered us $8 million, but they were at the time they only invested 15 as their minimum. But we didn't. We were entrepreneurs. We had not sold any equity. We didn't want to sell any equity. So we said we don't need $8 million, guys. We only need 4 because we're going to build a center in Lakeland, Florida. And they said, okay, well, here's 4 with an option to go to 8. And so that it worked out fine. And as we got more comfortable with them as an investor, and they were a great investor for us, we became comfortable with, okay, it's okay to give up equity.
So that sort of brings me to my second question. How were you able to balance some of your founder's vision with Allied Capital's own vision?
Right. That's a very good question. And we had 2 investors we were talking to. One was GE, General Electric Pension, and one was Allied Capital. General Electric Pension at the time was in Connecticut, and we did phone calls with GE. And GE would have 25 people on the call. There were 25 people from GE and 3 of us. And then with Allied, we met the chairman of the board, CEO, in his office in Virginia. He lived 2 miles from my house. And their managing directors lived 3 miles from my house, and they were a local company. And it was just culturally, I just felt a better fit dealing with these local people where we had connections, even though they were a big public company versus a corporate investor like GE. We're thinking that's going to be a disaster. And the other thing we did was I asked Allied, if you guys are ever raising money, this is a good little tip. I asked them for 10 references of entrepreneurs that they had invested in, including a few that they had problems with. And I called all 10. And I spent like a half an hour to an hour with each entrepreneur, and I grilled them on what was good, what was bad. Tell me about when you guys got into default, what did they do? And everybody was unanimous that these guys are reasonable people. They're easy to deal with. They're not weak, but they're tough, but they're reasonable. So we got a very good feeling for that. And then after we did the deal, they took a board seat, 1 of 5 seats, and they were very additive in the meetings. And a lot of it has to do with which partner in the firm sits on your board. So if you can pick, you should interview that person and try to have a say in who's sitting on your board. So that could make or break, because they're representing the firm. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, hi.
So my question is more around the skill set you feel like you wish you had acquired before you got it. And you would advise us to kind of like retrieve someone building stage.
The number one, so the question is what skills or things that I wish I had when I started the company. And number 1 would be self-awareness. I wish I were more self-aware when I started the company. And I think self-awareness could be the number 1 most important trait in entrepreneur success. And by, yes, so self-awareness includes everything from knowing how your words and actions reflect on the person that you're projecting. It includes attentiveness to, it's, you familiar with the term EQ, emotional intelligence? So it's emotional intelligence. So if I'm having a meeting with a customer or an employee, it's reflecting, knowing how they're going to react and playing that sort of being sensitive and intuitive about their reaction to you. Instead of projecting, it's more, yeah, you can project, but you're also taking back, and it's communication. It's also situational awareness, so knowing where you are in any given situation. And, we were so blind. I was pretty blind to that. I think my partner was relatively blind to it too. And we were two guys just kind of driving in a direction without regard. So as it turned out, we turned a lot of people. You can imagine, if they didn't fit, boom, they were very flexible in our mind. So I wish I had that more than anything at the time.
Okay, so the follow-up question is, you said you have like two entrepreneurs, one,
Yes.
and the other is also corporate worker, and the other is from Wall Street. So
Yes. So
how did you pick those as your co-founder, and how did your skill sets compensate each other? And did you find any of like weakness along the way, so you decided to kind of like bring new people, or how do you address this?
So we had, the question was, how did I find the co-founders, and how did we fit our roles and responsibilities together? And basically, the three of us, the three founders, we were all working part-time at night for an inbound telemarketing company that wound up failing. And when they failed, this was all part-time, so I was trying to make extra money. The three of us said, let's try to do something. And we started looking at different business ideas. The three of us were friends. We were all sort of managers of this company too, but we were all sort of friends. We didn't think through anything about what you're talking about. We just kind of went by feel, okay? And we looked at doing like buying a pizza franchise. We looked at renovating houses. We said, one thing, we hate making outbound cold calls. Why don't we set up a business to make outbound cold calls for sales work and be an outsourced sales company? That was the original idea. And our first customer called us. We called, said, wow, that's nice. We don't need you guys. We don't need people to make calls. We need someone to answer phones for us. And I said, well, we do that too. And that customer was Pepco, the electric company. They gave us they gave us a six-figure contract to put us in business. So that's the lesson in flexibility. You think you're going to make it over here, but someone gives you a great opportunity, you pivot. It's okay. Yeah. So, was there another question? Yes, ma'am.
So I put more of a financing question. Would you take on more loans or debt from the bank versus just more raise from Ally?
Right. So, the question was about our financing. Before we got money from Ally, we tried to get an equipment lease. So we were growing the business, and we needed to buy 40 computers, and we kept getting declined. I had good credit, and so did my partners. And finally, I'm like, why are you guys declining us? And they said, we're declining you because you don't have a corporate credit facility. And I said, well, we don't have a corporate credit facility because our margins are 18% EBITDA, and we don't need one. And the guy told me, you need one because if you don't have one, people assume you can't qualify for one. So, lesson is get a corporate line in place, even if you don't need it, because it shows that you were fundable. So we got a corporate credit line in place with Bank of America, Nations Bank at the time, and then it came time to raise money with Ally. We started talking to these equity investors. We talked to Spectrum and TA and Summit. You guys know some of these people, South Atlantic Capital, and then just serendipity. Okay, because this could have cost us a lot of money if we did a deal with Summit or TA. They would have taken a big chunk of our company. Serendipity. A guy named Smith Wood had been on a panel speaking with my business partner, and he said to my partner, hey, I'm on the board of Allied Capital. I think you'd be a good candidate for Allied Capital. Let me introduce you to the chairman. So he introduced us to the chairman of Allied, and he took a meeting with us, and he said, you don't need to sell equity. We have a better deal. We'll give you mezzanine debt, and we'll take warrants in your company. And it was a much, much cheaper form of capital.
And to follow up on that, when it came to the times when you decided to sell the company, I assume you're engaged with the sales side, the
Yes.
How did you make that choice? Like, who did they, were you satisfied?
Yeah, so yes, we did. We picked a sell-side middle market investment bank called SunTrust Robinson Humphrey. And we interviewed Blake Mason, and we interviewed a couple others. We basically took the bankers that were very popular in our space. So at conferences and through research, you can see which bankers are very active in our little space called call centers. And we interviewed 3. And Allied Capital was part of that process because they do this for a living. So they helped us pick the investment banker. Yeah.
Is it sort of like how company they sold similar?
Okay, so 2 of the 3 that we interviewed, I'd known for like 5 years. So I had gone to conferences, I had seen them speak. So I kind of had a feeling for these, and I had also met them, played golf with one of them. So I had a feeling for 2 of the 3 bankers already. So the fact that they were doing deals in our space mattered. The tombstones in our space matters a lot. Probably mattered more than anything. Is who's got the highest likelihood to find us a buyer who understands our particular business. So if any of you are in investment banking, I think your corporate customers will hire you if you have really strong domain expertise in their particular field. And I would not hire a generalist banker. Yeah. Did I answer that question?
Yeah.
Is there another one? Yes.
So going back to your comment on employees being fungible, how did you maintain a culture of optimism where people are always knocking on the door? How do you protect the employees, the good ones, right? How do you get them?
Well, we took care of the good ones. From a stock option point of view, if they had our DNA, we loved them. We were very difficult. We were tough on the ones that didn't have our share of values. We kind of drove them out in a way, instead of trying to maybe change them. But the cost of turnover is very, very high. But also the cost of maintaining a B or a C player is very high as well. So, yes.
You said that customer focus is one of your key differentiators. Would you just walk us through your practices for
Yeah, so customer focus. So we were doing B2B services selling, right, to enterprise customers like Microsoft and Nextel. So as a CEO of the company, I made sure I was in on those high-level discussions with the VPs and senior VPs at these companies so that I could see what their big vision was. And then I brought my team. So having customer focus with an enterprise customer and figuring out how your service set fits in with that enterprise customer is not easy, because people doing the work were the management and my VP and my managers, they didn't see the big picture. So it was up to us to sort of educate them and bring them into the conversation, which is what we did. No other call center company did that. Other call center companies were just taking orders, oh, I need 50 agents for this, or they weren't being strategic or value additive like we were. So and then our number one corporate, we had 10 values, right? The top 10 we called it. And the number one value was attitude is everything. So we talked about mindset. And the second value was customer goals are our goals. So we tried to become the customer. What would they want? What would they do? Always do the best for the customer. And I would still do that. I would preach that all day long if you're running a services business. It might cost you money in the short run as well, but it will make you money in the long run. And the beauty of helping the customer out, if you're a vendor in the services industry, is that they know that you're helping them out. And if times are ever tough, which is inevitable, they're going to stand by you. Whereas if you have an adversarial vendor-vendee relationship and everything is, let's refer to our 200-page contract, let's refer to this clause or that clause, if there's tough times, they're just going to fire you because they don't want the headache. So that's how we did it. Yeah. Are you in that kind of situation now, or?
yeah.
Okay. Well, we can chat. Yeah.
Oh, not in a bad context.
Okay.
Trying to
But you're taking care of the
customer focus.
You have enterprise customers or B2B customers?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I love working with B2B because they're very logical and they understand it as opposed to consumers or government. Working with enterprise buyers, there's some negatives, like they don't want to cover their butts, they don't want to make, no one gets fired hiring IBM, but they're also rational in the sense they can see ROI, they can see, oh yeah, you're differentiating, you're better.
They're much less fickle than customers.
Yeah, and they're if you don't screw it up, you got a customer, your lifetime value is very high. And the SMBs, the problem is they go out of business, they get bought. Anyway, any other? Yes.
Yeah, a follow-up question. So when you first got into the call center business, how did you know? And you mentioned you charge a premium. How did you know what was the right price to charge? How did the back and forth negotiation?
So we did a lot of market research. How we did that. This is a nice little thing you guys can do as well. I was an investor in another business, publishing, newsletter publishing company that a friend of mine and I bought, small little business. So we did an RFP to our competitors. Said this is so semi, bad intention, but it was the way we got data. And we saw all the proposals from 30 proposals came in. And we got to see what was great, what was bad, what the pricing was, how they did it, who their references were. So that was a great exercise, doing that RFP, getting all these responses, and we saw right away the industry is terrible. We saw that. I always told my guys, we're in the C industry. Do not try to be an A flags at a Chevy price, and be a B plus in the C industry. So
When you say C industry, what does that entail? Is it growth potential? Is it customer base?
Quality of delivery to the customer, and quality of management of our competitors. We just saw them as C players. These are people that could never. I mean, I love them and everything, but oops, did I just screw up here? I love these guys and everything, but they're C players. And then the way the customers were not very happy. So that's how I defined it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I'm curious, you mentioned the work-work balance, and as the lead entrepreneur in the business, you're faced with decisions that pop up, hires you're putting out on a daily basis. So I imagine your schedule it's fairly fluid. What rituals did you put into your life that helped you maintain sanity or made sure that you weren't getting caught in just putting out fire to move the business forward?
No, the first ritual was hired a great COO. I had the Michael Jordan of the call center industry. His name is Mike Morrow. Mike, hello, you're the best. He is the best. He's running a $300 million company down in Florida right now called Ball Phone. I was blessed by having a great hire with Mike. He was our COO. He became the CEO of a public company after I sold. The guy is a fantastic, he's the Michael Jordan of the call center world. I was lucky. So, but that said, I was still busy, so just trying to be as organized as you can. Being a manager of any kind, CEO or anything, it's imperative to stay organized. I like your idea of rituals. You need to have, I think, to be successful, you need to have rituals, whether it's wearing the same kind of clothes every day, because you just want to take out the extraneous thinking. Steve Jobs wore those black turtlenecks. He didn't want to think anymore. I know what I'm going to wear. That's an example. Even having a routine, working out at a certain time, eating certain types of food. There's something to be said for that, because that frees up your brain and energy to focus on solving problems.
My question is it doesn't seem to be a very complicated business model, and why does your competitor die, and why did you not survive?
Yeah, so the call center business model is a simple model. It's so simple that a lot of private equity funds got into it and lost a lot of money because it looks easy. Hire some people, put them in a room, buy a few computers, a couple of phone switches, get a few customers, answer the phone. Easy. It's not easy because the hardest part of the call center business, and they have this problem today, just like I had this problem when I was running it, is the people side. It's finding the people and training them, and motivating them and keeping them. The call center business is a people-centric business. The technology is the tail on the dog. The dog is figuring out how to find people and keep them from turning over. Because when you're spending $5,000 or $6,000 for every new hire, and have to hire at 100% turnover. If you can cut your turnover from 100% or 120% to 80%, all that flows to your bottom line. So it's figuring out how to keep people, hire good people, train them, motivate them, and retain them. That's the secret to success in the call center world. But nobody really talks about it. Everyone's focused on call distribution, predictive dialing, all the stuff that is important, but doesn't matter. Are we out of time?
5 more.
5 more minutes? Okay. Yes.
Have you ever advised others?
No, I'm not. Would love to meet him someday. Yeah. Yes.
So my question is more like when you started it, you mentioned before you were doing an inbound marketing company part-time. So when you started this, did you do it part-time? When did you pull the switch to do it full-time? You mentioned about just burn the boat. And how did you make that decision?
So I did not do this full time. When I started the business, one of us, the 3 of us, there were 3 founders. Well, actually it was pretty much, we started full time and it didn't go great. So 2 of the 3 partners went off and got full-time jobs, but within a year they came back full-time, and I got a full-time job. So we had a full-time manager, 4th person, and 3 part-time owners. And it wasn't until the owners came back in full-time that the company took off. That's why I believe in burning the boats. We didn't burn the boats. If we had burned the boats, I think we would have gotten, where we got faster.
So you mentioned the resources, the attention to the people, right? That makes the
Yeah, I think it is.
So, you say that is the attention to the people. You set up a great procedures or like systems.
Yes.
And that's the course that makes that happen.
Yes.
So would you say that's more of a cultural thing? Is that system?
It was less culture and more process. Like if you look at, and I can email you this deck if you want, but number 4 is process. So we had a very good process. So I talked about my COO. He's a process engineer. He's a 6 Sigma black belt. He worked at Lockheed in the aerospace industry. He brought that to this industry. We were so far ahead of everybody else. But I'm not saying we were perfect. We were not perfect. We were far from perfect, but we were a lot better than our competition. We had a better place to work, and we had more profitability, and we had lower turnover, happier customers.
With that being said, you're actually saying that you guys happen to identify the KSF in this industry as a process or the attention to people, and you happen to have a basic unit as great as it seems. And then that's why you're Is that what you're
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I want to thank you for bringing that to my attention. I love learning from you guys. Yes.
One more. So you mentioned you're thinking about buying new call centers now. Now the time's a lot different. Are you thinking about building something more like Pet Live, or are you still thinking about the more traditional? Where do you see yourself going?
Depends on the plan. We like that because we can bring telecom customers right away.
2 more.
2 more questions? Okay. Yes.
How do you get to know all these friends that you keep buying businesses with? And is that a place where you get your ideas? Like, I'm interested in your network outside of your, like how you became a part-time owner.
So one of my sayings is your network is your network. And it is. Your network is your network. I'm not talking about financial, it's also your psychic. It's just, and you have to network no matter what. If you're an introvert like myself, or if you're an extrovert like John, or if you are, you have to network. Because in today's world, I'll leave you with this. Can I email them the deck, or can you email them? Because we didn't get through everything, but I'll put my contact info. But let me just say one thing about networking. It's like your MBA. No matter what happens, no one can take it away from you. You have an MBA. You have a BA, right? No matter what happens, no one can take away from you the fact that you worked for 5 years at IBM and did a great job. You made President's Circle in New York Life. Your network, no one can take that away from you, which means you have instant job protection. In other words, if you ever got fired or lost your job or wanted to start a business, you have an asset that is portable and permanent. So think about that. So I didn't realize this until recently because I was blessed with sort of an innate, I guess I knew somehow, some way, ever since I was a little kid, that it paid to keep in touch with people and be nice to everybody. And it wasn't taught to me, it just kind of, I got lucky, But I realized like 5-6 years ago, hey man, it's important to have a great network and to have sort of a community of yourself around you and be known for something, have a personal brand. In today's world, companies don't give a shit about you. They don't care. They care about other things. So the only person that cares about you is you. So you have to start looking at assets. What can you learn? What kind of people, relationships can you cultivate? What kind of degrees can you get? Certifications maybe. So I will say your network is your net worth, and that's as true today as ever before. In the old days, if you had knowledge, you had an advantage. Talk to any partner here that's over 50. They were not a commodity, is something that takes time to build, which is your network. So it's a lifelong, constantly networking with people, working with friends like Tim and John, and we give to each other and just build a lot of trust, and there you go. It doesn't, and this kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight, and it's not easy. It's very hard to do. It takes a lot of effort, and it takes years. Now, you guys are lucky. You have cohorts in your classes. You're smart. You guys.